Assalamu alaikum everybody, I pray that you guys are really well and in the best of health. Hope you're having an absolutely amazing start to your week. So a very warm welcome back to the Arabic in 60 Steps YouTube channel, the podcast, wherever you guys are listening to or watching this. So in today's video slash podcast episode, we have a guest. We have our guest, Rayhan Abbasi, who's been a student of mine for a couple of years now, and in my Arabic world and in the Arabic in 60 Steps program. And his mum's even one of my students as well, and she's doing really well too. So I've got a couple of announcements for you guys, and then I'll kind of give you a brief intro just into kind of some of the topics that we go into in our conversation. We talk for about an hour. We cover loads of really cool stuff about learning Arabic, about him as an English language teacher, about kind of the difference in experience between teaching Arabic and teaching English, as well as his journey learning the Arabic language too. But just before we get into that, I've got a few little announcements. So number one is that we only have 3 spaces left for the Arabic in 60 Steps program for December. We've been really busy this month, so we've only got 3 spaces left. That's one thing. But something that makes it a little bit more urgent is the fact that we're only going to have those spaces for the next 3 days, because the company that print and ship the workbooks, these, if you're watching the video, I'll show you, these ones, the company that print and ship them for me, they've emailed me and said, look, we're having a break over the Christmas holiday and we're closing on the 18th. So they're not going to fulfill any orders after that. So it needs to be within the next 3 days, inshallah. So we have 3 spaces left, 3 days, so please don't procrastinate. Next thing is our walkthroughs as well. So obviously we did 12 weeks of the Alauddin series, which was really popular. We had a big giveaway at the end to Sister Salahuddin, who won some of the prizes. So we have some more prizes lined up. We're going to give away some calligraphy art, some Arabic in 60 Steps calligraphy art, which has been done by a really, really talented calligraphy artist called Amina Sabir. May Allah bless her for that. So she's doing that for us. She's creating some prizes for us for the next series that we're going to be doing in January. We're actually going to be doing 2. We're actually going to continue with the Alauddin series, because we only really just got started in the story, so I think it'll be really good for us to continue it. And I'm also going to add another fun little story as well. We're actually going to do some of the Wind in the Willows as well. That's a traditional kind of English story, but the Arabic's quite accessible, and just as I was reading it, I thought it would be a nice compliment as well. It's that the register is a little bit higher to what we learn in the Alauddin book, but that would be nicer to kind of have 2 different levels. Like if you're finding the Alauddin stuff a little bit too basic, then you'll have the opportunity to do Wind in the Willows or do both, inshallah. But there'll be prizes for really active students for both of them. We're going to be really, really active throughout January, so we're at least going to have 2 videos and 2 podcasts a week, but we may do more. Yes. So those are some of the prizes, right? We've got some really beautiful Arabic calligraphy art that we'll be shipping out to those of you guys who win those prizes for being engaged into the Wind in the Willows series and the continuing of the Alauddin series. The next thing is Amina Sabir has also agreed to create an Arabic calligraphy course exclusively available for Arabic in 60 Step students and My Arabic World students. I asked her to do this because I thought it would be a really nice complement to our Arabic script bundle, which we're nearly finished. We're going to be finishing by the end of this year. So there'll be the Arabic script bundle for actually reading and using the Arabic script. But if you're someone who's more artistic, you want to learn how to create beautiful Arabic calligraphy art, then her course will be really valuable for you as well. And we're making it available exclusively, as I say, to students in the Arabic in 60 Steps program and students inside of My Arabic World too. So those are kind of the announcements I wanted to mention. As for this episode with our brother Rayhan, so Rayhan is a brother from Scotland. He is an English language teacher, has over 1,000 hours of experience teaching English online now to people from all over the world. And it was just really nice to have the opportunity to talk to him. And him and I have kind of become good friends recently, really. Like, he's really kind of taken opportunities to talk to me, and so we've kind of become friends, really, and it was really nice just to get to talk to him for an hour about his own Arabic language learning journey and how it kind of compares to his students learning English. And we get into kind of a lot of personal development type stuff as well, really, like the different things about self-growth and stuff like that we kind of get into. So that's it, I think. We should jump in. I don't want this introduction to go on for too long, just 4 and a bit minutes. So let's jump in. Enjoy. So how are you today, my brother?
Alhamdulillah, brother. How's it going?
Alhamdulillah, very, very well. Alhamdulillah, very well. Please excuse me, by the way. I've got some dribble on my shoulder because
Is
I've
that
just
from your
put,
son?
I've just put my youngest Eunice to bed, and also we live next to a school, and all of a sudden they've just started to have a rave. So if we hear anything, so please excuse that.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
it's cool. It's cool.
it's pretty ghetto on my end. We've not got a fancy studio, not got a fancy studio or anything like that.
Okay, okay.
Cool.
How was your morning?
Good. We have my mother-in-law staying with us just for a couple of days at the moment. It's nice for her to come and kind of see the kids and stuff like that, and yeah, just help out with stuff like that. It's nice that the kids can see a lot of their extended family and stuff. They all live in London, pretty much. Like most of the family live in London. My family live in Cornwall, and then some of them live in Somalia, but most of them live in London. So it's nice for everyone to sort of be able to see each other and stuff.
That's
How about,
amazing.
yeah, how about yourself? What have you been up to this morning?
Just woke up, had my coffee, bit of exercise, and now I'm here.
Nice, man. Cool. So
Yeah,
so what I thought would be best probably for my audience would be if we jump straight into sort of um Arabic language stuff,
sure.
about learning Arabic, what the journey's been like for you, sort of where
Cool.
you're at the moment and things like that. And then kind of there's some other things that I just really like to chat to you about a little bit, really, about there's a few things English language wise I'd like to talk to you about, kind of
Yeah,
comparing
great.
yourself as an English teacher and myself as someone who teaches Arabic, because there's some times where I find it helpful to appeal to my students' knowledge of English to teach certain things in Arabic, and it'd be quite
Mhm.
nice to run those things by you and see if you can help me out at
Yeah,
all with
yeah,
developing
cool.
that.
I think that'll be a really interesting conversation.
Cool. So just to kind of introduce yourself to my audience, do you mind just giving them a really kind of brief introduction to who on earth you are?
Yeah, of course. Well, my name is Rayhan, and I've been an English teacher for the last 6 months. I post videos on Instagram every single day, on YouTube twice a week, and it was really with the coming of the coronavirus. I lost a job, a secure job that I was working in, and I kind of had this period of what am I going to do with myself. And my original plan, as a matter of fact, was to go into teaching, and that's what I'd been preparing to do for the last few years. Primary teaching, like yourself,
Hmm.
but I've realized this was a blessing in disguise. It really wasn't the path I was supposed to be taking, and I think I've really found myself in this journey of language teaching and coaching. And yeah, for the most part, that's where I am right now.
That's perfect. I've got a bit of a soft spot for the Scottish accent, by the way, and for the Scottish
Oh
people in
yeah,
general. You know, there's a bit of history in my family, really. My great granddad served in the Royal Scots Fusiliers.
amazing.
He served with them, and there's some really interesting stuff there. Like he had to, like, in like the 30s and the 40s, he traveled to like what is now Pakistan. He served in Lahore. He served in
Oh,
Amritsar.
amazing.
I know,
Wow.
amazing. He's got in our family, one of like the distant cousins has got this one of these metal cigarette packs, and inside it's got an inscription in Urdu in it that was like made
Okay.
out to him by one of his friends that he made in
Wow.
Pakistan. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Do,
Fascinating.
do you know any Urdu?
No, I don't. Well, no, I don't. My best friends are Pakistani, and like I've been going
Okay.
to his house loads, and so I know a little bit. Like to be honest, a lot of the stuff. There's a lot of stuff that when you just understand a little bit about the Urdu accent, you can place a
Mhm.
lot of the words in Arabic.
Oh yeah, of course,
You
of
know, like
course.
so sometimes you don't recognize them straight away, but when you hear Urdu enough, you start to see where it kind of pieces together. Like I heard the word intizar the other day,
Hmm.
meaning like waiting for something, right? And obviously
Hmm.
that's from Arabic too. You're Pakistani.
Yeah, yeah, that's my background. Well, I'm mixed
Cool.
race. My mother's
Yep.
side is all Scottish heritage, and my
Okay.
dad's family is from Pakistan.
Cool.
And it's funny because I actually know more Arabic now than I do Urdu. I
Okay.
never actually took the time to learn Urdu, but
Okay.
it's funny because when I'm speaking Arabic, my Pakistani family can understand it.
Hmm.
And one of my uncles actually married an Arab, and he speaks to his in-laws in Urdu, and they speak in Arabic, and they can actually still have a dialogue with each other, which is quite
Wow.
interesting.
Cool. Well, there's a really cool podcast. There's a sister who runs it called Shireen, I think her name is, called
Mhm.
Urdu Sikhiye. Just learn Urdu. It's a really cool podcast. Like I wish someone would do something like that for Somali. But yeah, she's based in America, but her background's Pakistani. But so her Urdu is typical of a lot of children of immigrants, right? Like it's a bit here and there, and it's a really cool podcast. You know, she kind of shares her journey of learning it, and that's really nice.
That's amazing. So
So
how
have
long
you,
have you been? Sorry, go ahead.
no,
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you quickly if that just before we get into the stuff I've promised my audience, I wanted to ask you quickly if being in Scotland affects your English teaching
Yeah.
at all.
Well, it's all I do is online, and it's funny because most of my students are actually from the UK.
Yep.
A lot of them, like a lot of my students are Chinese, Russian, Ukrainian. I'd say that I have some Arab students, but I'd say that's the majority of my sort of client base. And I'd say 90% of people I'm dealing with are actually are in the UK. Some of them
Oh,
are in my
cool,
city, which
cool.
is quite crazy.
But I mean, specifically, any issues with like Scottish accent?
Oh, that, yeah. It's funny because Scotland being a part of the UK, I always make a joke about this with my students. So on the host website where I do my teaching, it just shows the Union Jack. And people see the Union Jack and they think, oh, that means London.
Yep.
And they book a lesson with me. And then I get talking and they realize, oh, wait, you're not from London. And I'm saying, no, I'm from Scotland. And then I
Yeah.
feel like there's a sort of bias against me from that point. And when I try to correct their pronunciation or their accent, they say to me, are you sure that's not just Scottish?
That's kind of
Are
a
you sure?
shame. That's kind of a shame.
It's funny. I laugh about it, but
Yeah, cool.
yeah,
Cool.
I mean, a lot of people like the Scottish accent, which is good. I mean, I think some people have this idea that the Scottish accent's really thick and hard and strong, which it is. It is a strong accent, but I think more so when you go more north. But here in Glasgow, it's a lot more cosmopolitan. So I'd
Yeah.
say our accents are somewhat more neutral,
Mm.
as opposed to if you're really to go north and you hear a thick, strong Scottish accent.
Cool. So if we can, so we'll shoot into like the Arabic stuff then. We'll probably circle
Yeah,
round
cool.
to all kinds of other stuff we might want to talk about. But
Yeah,
talk to me a
cool.
little bit about kind of what stage in your life you were at when you thought it would be important to sort of start taking learning Arabic seriously.
It's a good question. It came to me so impulsively. It was so sudden. It was bizarre because at that point I was training to be a primary school teacher,
Mhm.
and I was in the school. And I think in that point in my life, I had some changes going on, and I was really thinking. This was before we even knew about the pandemic, and it was just an area of change. And I remember exactly where I was standing. I was standing in a corridor outside of one of the classes where I was volunteering, and I was about to go get my lunch, and then it just hit me like a brick. I was like, why don't I learn Arabic? And I went onto YouTube and I looked up beginner Arabic lesson, and there's all these videos of learn Arabic while you sleep. And it was
Okay.
like, hello, marhaban, how are you? كيف حالك? I am well, thank you. Ana bkhair, shukra lak. And I just sat there in the classroom, and I think I picked up those three phrases instantly. And there were Arab kids in the class, so when the class returned, I was trying to go up to the Arab kid, and I was like, marhaban, كيف
Cool.
حالك? And he's looking at me like, what's just happened to this guy? And for 1 year, in fact, just over a year, every single night when I went to bed, I listened to Arabic as I slept. I made close friends with Arabs, and every time I wanted to know a sentence, I would send the sentence to them. They would translate it to Arabic. They would record their voice saying it. I would edit it on Adobe Premiere and make a raw audio file of just the phrases. So um, just the most bizarre phrases, like just like things like, as far as I'm aware, he's unemployed. That was one of my sentences.
Okay.
Just really bizarre sentences, and they'd play to me all night. And for 1 year, I did that every single night. I listened to Arabic while I slept.
So how long ago was it when you decided to start learning Arabic while you sleep?
It was immediately. I did it right from the beginning.
I mean, like how long ago though?
Oh, it went like, when did I start learning Arabic?
Yeah, yeah,
I think it was, I want to say May 2019.
yeah. Okay, cool.
No, that's a lie. That's a lie. It was because I'm thinking of the school term. It was actually after the summer holidays. It was September 2019.
That's really recent.
Yeah, yeah,
That is really recent. Yeah,
yeah.
mashallah. Cool. So at what point do you find out about this guy, about yours truly?
You know what videos of yours I really liked? I liked the ones where you gave an Arabic phrase and the whole video was just you going through word by word and explaining it.
Okay.
And I have an aunt who's a Yemeni Arab, and she didn't know I was learning. And I spoke to her and I said, I'm gonna butcher this phrase. I'm gonna absolutely butcher it, but so
Go
forgive
for
me
it.
in advance. It
Let's
was
have it.
like muhaddada. Oh man, what was it? Muhaddada Arabi Hayonat Bilinkarat or something like that. You know the one, right?
Yeah,
Well, I
About
can't
being
remember it.
threatened with extinction. Yeah, that these animals are threatened with
Yeah.
extinction. Yeah, yeah.
I've not practiced enough, but that was one of the first ones I
Yeah.
learned. There's another one. We will protect the Al-Aqsa by blood
Okay.
with blood and soul. So I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
learning all these bizarre phrases, and people would be saying Kaifa Halik to me, and I'd be saying, I'm going to protect the Alexa, my blood and my soul. And
Nice.
they're like,
Cool.
what?
That's good. That's good for the listeners actually to be aware of that. On YouTube, I have a little series where we just have like, I can't even remember what I call the series, but they've got these cool, colourful backgrounds on them. You see the playlist, some of the black backgrounds. Like I've always got this phrase up on there. It's usually like one sentence, and it was always sentences that I took from the lessons inside of a product that I built called My Arabic World, and yeah, like sometimes I'll just be going through one of those lessons, one of the videos, and I'd just pick out something I think, yeah, that's cool, but there's some quite specific vocabulary, like animals being in danger of extinction and stuff like that. Like just phrases, you don't get those everywhere, do you?
Yeah, of
So,
course. Of
yeah,
course, you don't hear
that's a
them
cool little
otherwise.
playlist. That's a cool
Yeah,
little playlist.
it
Yeah.
kind of like deceives people to make them think you actually are really advanced in Arabic until they realize you just picked that out of a video. But it was good. I
Mm.
liked it. I liked it a
But
lot.
that kind of stuff's important though. Like a lot of students don't appreciate how much of your progression in a language is just to do with your confidence. Like if and you kind of
Oh, absolutely.
you kind of trick yourself into believing you're more fluent than what you are, and that kind of forces you into putting yourself out there a bit more. It gives you
Of
kind of the
course.
stabilizers to do that, and there's a lot to be said for that. Like I'm a big fan of these kind of little knowledge bites, these little stuff that just make you feel like you're a bit more knowledgeable than what you perhaps
Of
are.
course.
Like I like that kind of stuff. That's why I like the etymology. That's it. Like just knowing where words come from and stuff. Like I
Yeah, of
find that really
course.
interesting.
It's
Cool.
particularly interesting what you mentioned about confidence. And it's funny because students book with me, and on that first meeting, it's always, okay, how long have you been learning English for?
Hmm.
What are your goals? What have you tried so far? What are you struggling with? And it's a lot of asking questions and finding out. And one thing that always comes up is when I ask them what the problem is, they tell me, well, I'm just not confident.
Okay.
And it's really funny because, well, who told you you're not confident?
Mm.
And I say, well, what do you think you need to become more confident? And they think, oh, I need more vocabulary. I need idioms, phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs will make me more confident.
Okay.
And it's funny because these students have been studying for like 10 years and they know grammar, better than most English natives.
Yeah.
And they think that they're going to get the answer to confidence through studying grammar more. But the thing is, like, when I'm speaking to them, you can tell they're not confident because as I'm speaking in English, you can see them looking at me like this.
Okay.
Whereas, see if maybe it's the Scottish accent, but as opposed to if they're just to keep their body relaxed and just nod, because I have these two Chinese neighbors and they've been in the UK for a long time, and their English is not the best, but they're so confident in English. And it took me years to realize how simple their English actually was, because they're just like masters of winging it. The
Yeah.
way they
Yeah.
come up to me and they smile and they nod and they know the right questions to ask. They know
Yeah.
what questions. And if I give them an answer they don't understand, they just say, oh, great. And then they sidestep and they start talking about something else.
Mm.
And this ability to act and communicate confidently, it's actually separate from language. And I think it's important to get both of those, because when people are going into English conversations and they're thinking about grammar, it's actually really removing them from the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's really interesting. That is really interesting. Well, I had a good question, but I forgot it. We'll probably circle back around it. So tell me about how so yeah, where are we in the timeline then? So talk to me about how long it took you to, because I actually think that you joined My Arabic World before you joined the Arabic in 60 Steps
that's
program,
right.
right?
That's right.
Yeah, because like I remember it was, I don't know, like last year summertime, because I remember it was around a day when I launched My Arabic World the first time we
Mm-hmm.
launched. I remember you were among those, some of the first people who joined, and yeah, so you actually joined that first, and then I kind of did some repackaging of that now, and now it's live again. But so when was it that you joined the Arabic in 60 Steps program?
Well, I started in September, and I think
Yep.
immediately I went on to Preply and I got myself an Arabic teacher. I reckon I joined before the new year. I
Okay.
think it was around this, either the start of the year or at the end of the year,
Okay.
2019 going on to 2020.
Okay. And it wasn't that long after that your mum joined the program as well, was it?
My mum joined the Arabic in 60 Steps.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
How
that's
is she
right.
getting on with that now? I haven't heard from her for a little while. She was very, very active not so long ago, but it's been a couple of weeks or something since I heard from
Yeah,
her. Is
well,
she okay?
in the last few weeks, alhamdulillah, yeah, she's good, thanks. Well,
Alhamdulillah.
in the last few weeks, she's just went into full-time employment.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, so that she's taken a wee sidestep from her Arabic studies, but
Yeah.
she still takes it really serious. And it's funny
Mm.
because I can always hear your voice in my house.
Sounds terrifying.
She's on Duolingo, mashallah. She's got
Cool.
like maybe in the last week she hit 400 days.
Wow.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. She
Oh,
started
mashallah.
just after me, and
Wow, mashallah.
she's really doing fantastic. She took the grammar a lot more seriously than what I did.
Okay.
I,
Yeah,
I
she
delayed learning grammar, but she's really delved into that.
generally with her questions to me, they are she really does seem to want to tighten the nuts and bolts of the grammar. That you get a lot of students who are a little bit gun-ho and they just want to move on through all the steps, but your mum, she seemed to be a little bit more calculated. They're not really wanting to move on quicker than than is entirely necessary. The rule that I give my students generally is like an 80% rule. Like I say to my students, there gets to a point where like your confidence and your momentum is more important than the last 20% of a lesson a lot of the time, because
Sure.
sometimes students get stuck at 80-85%, however you quantify it, on a lesson, and they're done. It takes away all the momentum. Before that, they were keeping up with like a certain number of steps a week or a certain number of steps a month or whatever their timeline's like. And so I recommend that, because languages are as such, aren't they, that like you're always revising stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
something that I realized when I was building my Arabic world, where we take organic videos of spoken Arabic and then we kind of unpack them, that I thought like native speakers of language don't care about what step you're on,
Of
unfortunately.
course.
Like
Of
like
course.
in an organic used conversation, a dialogue or a monologue of Arabic, like they might be using stuff that you learn in step 42, stuff that you learn in step 1, and stuff that we don't even have in the program directly. Do you know what I
Of
mean?
course.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I think with Arabic, there's like a lot of people are probably joining the Arabic in 60 steps. I'm just guessing because they want to understand the Quran, and
Yeah.
I think in that aspect, it's more important to really be familiar with Arabic grammar, whereas most people are learning English because they want to get new jobs or relocate or take their business global, and for that, it's not like it's not essential that you delve into the grammar side.
Yeah, it's been a real kind of learning experience for me to kind of figure out, well, who are the people who buy my course? Like who are the people who are attracted to what I do? Because
Hmm.
sometimes, like when you have a number of students like we do on the program, we've got hundreds of students now. It's hard to kind of, like, not everyone's the same. Like they don't all turn up and it's clear that they're all males between the age of 25 and 35 who live in USA, UK, and Canada. Like they don't present
Hmm.
themselves like data like that to you. Like we have quite a lot of non-Muslims even, like, and it's been a bit of a journey to kind
Non-Muslims,
of,
really?
yeah, a
Wow.
lot of non-Muslims join the program. Honestly, like the program, like I'm starting to deliberately package it so it has more of a kind of a spiritual appeal. Like I deliberately added the tagline Arabic to enrich
Arabic of the soul. Enrich
Arabic
the
to
soul. That's it.
Arabic
I
Arabic to
like it.
enrich the soul. Yeah, like because that's what I realized. Like that's kind of what we offer in the program. Like, we have this build up to all of this kind of really iconic Arabic literature that the students start to read at the end of the program. But like, I don't know if it's just because I'm a bit of a bubbly, fun white dude on YouTube that we get non-Muslims who warm to it, and they just want
Uh-huh.
to be part of the program. And sometimes like it's kind of embarrassing to say in some ways that like some of my most successful students are some of the students who have completed the exam at the end and got like 99, 100% are non-Muslims.
Wow.
Like it honestly, like that's a whole other, I could go on a whole rant about just our shortcomings generally as an ummah with regards to the Arabic language. But
Of
yeah,
course.
so
Of
that like that
course.
that's been a real journey for me to kind of piece together what exactly we offer and what is how I can help the most people, because with Arabic you could offer it to so many different kinds of niches. like
Hmm.
like there would be, like, honestly, if anyone's listening and is an Arabic language teacher and wants a good business, I'll just give you an idea for free. Like, do GCSE Arabic, because honestly, like the exam boards that teach that examine the GCSE Arabic, they're terrible. Their support is awful. like in terms of the amount of people who sit the Arabic exam is way less than like Spanish, French, maths, or English, obviously, right? So like they just don't put the budget into supporting students. Every year when it comes to summertime and there are the exams, my inbox is flooded with GCSE Arabic students who are ready to give me money to help them pass that exam, right? I don't like the GCSE. I've fallen out with them, right? I used to teach GCSE Arabic. I used to coach students through that exam. Even in Cornwall, I carried out the oral exams for the students in Cornwall when I was living there. And but that's before they kind of brought out this new syllabus and stuff. But so like I'm always a little bit I'm a little bit sharp with them. I'm like, why are you bothering with that? but really, like if someone wants to do that, like there's absolutely an opportunity for a teacher to really make a good living for themselves doing that. Or even if there's just so many ways you can offer it, and that's such a difficult minefield to navigate. Like I wondered if like obviously I expect it's like that with English, but I suppose like most people learn English for work reasons, or would that be accurate to say?
It's funny because a lot of students come to me with that question and they say, I need to learn phrasal verbs, I need to learn idioms, or I need to learn more vocabulary. And when you actually ask the right questions, and because that first lesson, it's really finding out, is what I offer going to help you? And if it is, how is it going to help you? How are we going to approach this? And what's going to be your learning plan as you continue to work with me? And you tend to find what they think they need is the antithesis of what they actually need. What they actually need is someone who can inspire confidence. And like a lot of these people, they learned English in school from a non-native English teacher.
Yeah.
And they have problems. They understand grammar, they understand the tenses. It's funny, if you ask a native English person who hasn't studied English, you say, how many tenses are there in English? They'll say 3. I thought there was 3. I thought like past, present, future.
Those are time frames, really, aren't they? But
when people start saying 12, I was like, where else in time can you go other than backwards or forwards? It's not like you can go sideways through time. So I was like, what else could there be? Where was I going with that?
So you were talking about in the first lesson, you kind of need to recognize what really a student wants, and it's often very different to what they actually need. Yeah.
Sure. So a lot of these people, they've never been in a conversation with someone where they've made them laugh, or where they've laughed at something that an English person has said, and they feel like they have an English friend who is like actually being a friend with them and sort of making them laugh and encouraging them and building their confidence. And when they get a taste of that and they realize there's things you can do instantly, such as people, they'll start speaking English and their body language changes. All of a sudden the shoulders shrink and these like negative thoughts of self-doubt start circulating in their mind, and they don't realize it. Like they're quite extroverted and confident in, let's say, Polish, but the second it's in English, the whole body changes. And I can invite, open yourself back up. I can tell when you're speaking English, your breathing is like shallower. Like just take a few moments and breathe and relax. And I tend to find if I ask the right questions, they will listen up and they will feel more relaxed. And generally, they'll feel more confident after that first session, just with a really few simple tips, for expressing confidence and good communication.
That's really interesting. Yeah, like I've often found like actually the first language that I learned before I got to learn Arabic was Spanish, and I realized that I kind of had a different personality in Spanish. Like it's interesting how languages are kind of these channels through which we sort of express ourselves to the world, and
of course,
and languages, they don't all have the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Like there isn't even the same things accessible in some languages to others, let alone the fact that different languages kind of have their own cultures. Which is interesting. Like I don't know if I mentioned, my wife uses sign language. She's hard of hearing. We use sign language at home as like probably our main language, and like there's actually a deaf culture, like something that I didn't really realize. I just thought, well, they use British Sign Language, they have like British culture, and it's just what we'd say in spoken English, in signed English, but it's really not. There's sign language, like grammar and even accents and stuff. Like I'm not as good at it, but like my wife, she knows where someone's from in the country. Like she can spot the difference between someone who's signing, who's from Australia or whatever. Like it's fascinating how there's like different personalities that manifest in these different languages. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Communication is such an interesting topic. It's so interesting.
Mm.
That's really magnificent.
you know, this is kind of I don't want us to go down this rabbit hole too much, but it's kind of a relevant tangent, so I'll bring it in here. That like I quite often discuss with Christians about what the significance is of the fact that the Bible is available in all languages,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's considered the word of God, right, in all languages,
Sure.
right? Because I have a feeling, obviously I have a bias because I'm a Muslim and stuff, but like I have a feeling that, well, it's not the same. Like languages, unfortunately, they don't translate accurately. You know, like the process of translation is in and of itself
Yeah.
not I don't want to say a corruption necessarily, because that kind of gives the impression that it's deliberate, but it's a distortion to some degree, right?
I was talking to my Christian friend about this, and his response is that, in Christianity they believe in the Trinity,
Yeah.
and their view is that the Holy Ghost has an influence in the languages,
Yeah.
in the text, which preserves its meaning or its message as being the word of God.
Yeah.
Whereas, I don't. Are you familiar with Noman Ali Khan?
Yes.
Yeah, a really big fan of him. He has a really great course, being a BTV.
Okay.
He has a course, Divine Speech, beautiful. Like,
Mm.
when you watch this, he talks about how the Quran only could be from God, and his argument for it is so convincing.
That's
And
beautiful.
one of the things he says is that the Quran is not only divine because of its contents, but it's also divine because of its style. And
Okay.
the style cannot be translated. You can make an attempt to translate the contents of it,
Mm.
but it's impossible to translate the style of it,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
choice of the wording, and the combination of the style and the content, what's in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what makes it so unique.
Mm. Yeah. That is fascinating. So I suppose next I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that I try to, well, you know, a lot of the time when students come to learn Arabic, they have in their head, they've often been scared off by other Arabic students who've been learning for like a few months or something. Like something that's really common. Like I witnessed it when I was at university, right? Like a lot of students in our first year, we've been doing Arabic for like 3 months. And like someone will come to us and they'll be like, oh, next year I'm thinking of doing an Arabic module. And we'll say to them, yeah, but duals. Yeah, but broken plurals. Yeah,
Mhm.
but cases or something. Like you at that point, a lot of students, they know just enough to scare off people who don't know as much as
Sure,
them a
of
lot of the
course.
time. So with a
Yeah.
lot of these things, I've noticed that a lot of those things that often scare people off with the Arabic language, we actually have them in English a lot of the time. They're not the same, of course, right? But
Hmm.
there might already be kind of a concept that we have in English that you can sort of if you look through that lens, then it makes a lot more sense in Arabic. So like one example is cases, right? So like obviously we don't put fatahas, kasaras and dhammas on things,
Of
and
course.
we don't have ina and una on the end of words. Obviously we don't use that in
Of
English, but
course.
like
Yeah.
in English, is it accurate to say that it's somewhat an expression of case when we use I and me differently? So for example, if you're the subject of the sentence, you're saying I, like I am talking right now. Or if
Hmm.
you're the object of the sentence, then it'll be me. So someone is talking to me or someone saw me. Is that like, is it correct in English to say that that is an expression of case to some degree?
We call that passive or active sentences. There's
Mm-hmm.
terms for this. See, me personally, I don't focus too much on grammar, and it's interesting that you mentioned. Well, my original plan was to focus on grammar, but it just turned out the students I deal with, it's not what they needed, it's not what they
Sure.
wanted, and in my experience, people studying grammar, they give up faster. It's funny, you gave a business idea for Arabic teachers. I'm going to give a business idea for people who want to be English teachers.
Good. Let's
If
have
you
it.
want to make easy money, you spend £10 on an English grammar textbook, a thick one that has lots of pages. You become a teacher and you charge 10, 20, £30 a lesson, and you just go through one page after one page after one page, and you've pretty much got an infinite stream of money, and
Yeah.
people will pay it.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, it's such a boring way to learn, and you're learning things that people don't actually use when they're speaking. I forgot where I was going with that. What's going on with me?
Yeah.
What's going on with me?
So I was asking you about about whether sort of the difference between I and me in English. Whilst like
I
I and me, they mean the same thing, don't they? Like if you point at yourself,
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
both refer to I and me, right? But like the way from an Arabic lens that I view that is that it's kind of like cases, you know, like the I is like the subject, or we'd call it marfu' in Arabic, and the me is like the object of the sentence, and would the case wise we'd call it
Yeah, yeah.
mansub. And yeah, you mentioned it actually in English. It's you're the more English terms are passive and active, and you know
Mm.
you started to explain why a strictly grammar approach, whilst it might have good business implications, it's not always the most fun and
That's
applicable
right. That's right.
way of
That's
learning.
right.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
that does that marries quite nicely actually to the terms that we use in Arabic for it, because like in Arabic you'll call the subject of the sentence the fa'il, which really means the active, right? It really
Mm.
means that that individual's active. And then if something is, you know, like what you'd call the object of the sentence in Arabic is the maf'ulun bihi, and the term maf'ul, that kind of has the meaning of being passive built into it. So those terms do translate quite nicely actually between Arabic and English. But carry on with what you were saying about kind of teaching English in a way that is a lot more applied rather than sort of something that's a bit more abstract.
Yeah, I remember where I was going with that now.
Cool.
So one thing I think it's important for students, which keeps their motivation high, is they need to see results quickly. And see, with grammar, you do not quickly see results. If you're thinking about, if I was in say I'm not a native English person and I'm thinking about grammar and I'm listening to you and then I'm picking up on, because when natives talk, our grammar is not perfect. And if I'm an ESL person and I'm listening and I'm thinking, why did he say that? Why did he say it like that? That's different from the way that I learned it. That textbook, it didn't say that. So why is he talking like that? And it creates this confusion, and where it just pulls you out of the conversation. So I think it's really good if you can actually see results quickly. And that was something that inspired me with learning Arabic. Was I found this really good video on YouTube where it was a conversation. It was like, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam. أنا اسمي ريهان أنا اسمي أحمد تشرفنا الشرف لي, and it took you through a whole conversation. And the video, when I found it, had 20 views. I think the video has about 400 views now.
Wow.
Like, I listened to it again and again and again. And there was an application called Wiki, and in Wiki you can just match with random people, and you
Okay.
just speak to them. You choose the language. You know, I was talking to Arabs on it, and see that conversation. Assalamu alaikum, marhaban, ana ismi Rehan, min aina anta, ana min, you know, wherever. I had that conversation so many times, to the point that I would try and say it so confidently. I wanted to deceive people into making them think that I was Arab, or I was
Okay.
like fluent in Arabic. And that was sort of my goal, was to see how long can I confidently sound like an Arab speaker,
Cool.
an Arabic speaker. And that was rewarding for me, because I went from having no Arabic within like a week to trying to deceive people, even if only for 10 seconds or
Hmm.
15 seconds or
Cool.
1 minute, that I can speak Arabic.
Hmm.
And when it would finally get to that crashing point of, oh man, I ran out of Arabic. I don't understand the question he asked me.
Yeah.
People would start speaking to me in English, say, oh, you don't speak Arabic? Your Arabic's very good. And I'm like, I've only been learning for 2 weeks.
Cool. What was the name of that app, just for the benefit of the listeners?
Wiki,
Okay.
Wiki.
How's it spelled?
I think it's WAKIE.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And
Cool.
you put in where you're from, and
Hmm.
you can decide where you want to meet people from.
Yeah. Cool. You know, so
Yeah.
something that I noticed when I studied in Palestine is that there's kind of a there's two sides to that process, right? There's a lot of good in developing the same conversation lots of times, because as we're saying earlier, it kind of convinces you you're more confident than you perhaps are, which is really good in a lot of ways, right? Like I found when I was in Palestine, I had the same conversation about, I don't know, 1,000 times, where I just tell people how I became a Muslim. Like that's what they always want to know. So I probably had that conversation. That was the main conversation I probably had for the first like 3 months of the
Wow.
year that I was there,
Wow.
right? Because it's what everyone wants to know. So like, but in building My Arabic World, something that I thought was really cool about My Arabic World is that rather than you having to go to an Arab country and manufacture these conversations about other topics, like we deliberately build lessons from moments that are from animals going extinct, as you mentioned, and
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
playing in the playground, and things to do with medicine. Like some of the lessons that we've got in there are like talking about keeping your kidneys healthy, like all kinds of different subjects like that. Whereas normally in like a human experience, it's often quite difficult to manufacture that. Like it's quite difficult to manufacture you having conversations about a lot of different topics. And
Of
as I said, like
course.
there's kind of pros and cons to that. That in the beginning of your speaking experience, you're likely to have the same conversation lots of times.
Well, it's that repetition which makes you good at it.
Mm,
Repetition is the most important thing, I think, with learning. Even when, like, if you're training, you're lifting weights, or it's you don't just squat once, you don't just bench press once. For those muscles to grow strong, it takes repetition.
mm,
And it's the exact same with the mind. If you like, even like, your tongue is a muscle. So if you want to be able to pronounce something right, there's no other way than repetition. Like, you
yeah.
have to repeat it.
What you
If a letter is difficult or a word's difficult, you're going to learn it by repetition. And either it can take 5 years of you only saying it when it comes up and people correcting you, or you can sit there and count with your fingers until you've said that word 100 times, or say it
yeah.
200 times, 300 times.
Mm.
And it's actually muscular training. It's physical. It's like doing sit-ups. You do it again, again, again. It's repetitions, sets and reps, the same way as with physical training, in order to correct your pronunciation.
I found it interesting what you said about how native speakers, we make mistakes in our grammar.
Yeah, of
I found
course.
that interesting. I was actually looking at the books behind you. For those who are listening on the
Mm.
podcast, our brother Rayhan's got a beautiful bookshelf behind him. But your bright orange books, firstly, how are so many books published in that same color? Because it looks like loads of different independent authors. Because that's quite a
Yeah,
specific color.
yeah, yeah.
But is one of those books Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss?
No, but I do have the 4 Hour Work Week by Tim
Okay,
Ferriss.
cool. I've got that actually. I think yeah, I've actually got it right here. 4 Hour Work Week.
Oh,
Got that
oh
right
yeah,
here.
yeah. There we
Yeah,
go.
but
There we
I've
go.
recently the audio book I've been listening to recently is Tools of Titans, and it looks like
Yeah.
it's the same sort of color, doesn't it, of the books that you've got over there?
Maybe I
But
could get it. It'll match my
yeah, exactly.
library.
It'll match your set. Yeah, but anyway, in that Tim Ferriss is talking about how he'd have like transcripts written for some of the podcasts that he had with some of his guests and put them in the
Mm.
book, and like he just noticed that how horrible even his English is when it's spoken, like mixed jumbling up of tenses and using use wrong pronouns for people,
Of course, of
all kinds
course.
of stuff
Yeah,
like that, and that's
yeah.
like I very very rarely like. I even don't enjoy editing my own content because
Mm.
I've got better at it. Like in the beginning, I remember when I first created my first videos, I thought like, this is just awful. Like I remember the first time I tried to make videos was at my dad's house in Cornwall. There's one
Mm-hmm.
particular room he has upstairs that's got really good lighting, and I just had like my laptop propped up on some books like this,
Mm-hmm.
and like I was set ready to make a video, and I looked at the camera and I just thought, no, I'm just not a video person. I've got like
Wow,
1,000 videos out now. Like, but I remember back then
mashallah.
thinking to myself,
Wow.
I'm just not a video person. Back then, like sometimes, subhanallah, we write ourselves off, don't we, for
Yeah,
such
yeah.
little reason.
It just takes practice. It really just, it's repetition. It's
Mm,
repetition. It's training against that resistance of self-doubt and difficulties, which is what makes us skilled at something. And obviously you're a testament to that, because look how, mashallah, natural you are in front of the camera now, and what you've achieved and how many people you've helped learn Arabic. So
There's a
if you'd
real,
listened to that first piece of self-doubt, how many people, I would have never learned حيوانات العربية محددة بالإنقراض. So
subhanallah. Yeah, subhanallah. That's that is really humbling, subhanallah. That's really humbling. Like although it's not a strictly Arabic lesson, something that I think the audience can take away from that is not listening to those kind of little bits of self-doubt. Like it's honestly, it's so humbling where we are now. Like,
of course.
the podcast's nearly at 250,000 downloads now. The Arabic
MashaAllah,
and 60
wow.
Steps podcast, yeah. And then, as I said, like, but between the Somali and Arabic channels, I think there's about 1,000 videos now. And, that is
MashaAllah,
so
amazing.
humbling. That's so humbling.
It must be.
So I actually checked out your, like in your Instagram, like I've got your Instagram. I'll make sure that we have it in the show notes and everything, so everybody knows where they can get in touch with you, inshallah. But just so we can spell it out for people who can't be bothered to go and have a look at the show notes, it's at Learn English with Ray, isn't it? Ray spelled
Yeah, yeah.
Ray. But
Yeah, yeah.
what about your YouTube?
English with Ray.
Okay, cool. Okay, that's helpful that they're both almost identical. That's helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have a website yet?
Not yet.
Okay,
It's in the plans. It's in the
cool.
plans, but I'm still to get there.
Cool. Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I had a look on the page where the link in your bio goes to, and you've done like over 1,000 lessons, right?
Yeah, that's right. Alhamdulillah.
That's
Yeah.
a serious body of work, Akhi.
That's in 6 months and 5 days. 6 months and 5 days, 1,000 lessons.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How many lessons might you deliver in a day? Like in a typical kind of work day?
7 and 10, and I work 7 days a
Wow.
week.
Wow.
I started on the 4th of June. I've not had a day off since then.
Yeah.
So I mean, I found something that I love, and I'm prepared to just keep working at it. You know, one thing I find my work really rewarding, and I really love the students that I have. I'm really grateful. Maybe you'll be able to empathize with this point, but generally the people who are learning a language, they want to have more experiences, they want to have more doors open to them, they want more opportunities to be available, and to go through that, journey of learning a language. There's a lot of reading books, there's a lot of learning knowledge, and it's a lot of doing things which don't necessarily feel rewarding, because you have your eyes on this end goal that you want to get. And people who are willing to go through that pain and that laborious effort in order to get to that end goal, there's something within all of those people, this perseverance and this resilience and this hunger for knowledge. And I find working around people like that to be really refreshing.
Well,
And
yeah, like
go ahead.
I've definitely found that to be the case since I've started teaching adults. Like when I've done kind of live in person lessons on,
Uh,
online, I was mostly teaching children, and like seriously, like I've like
that's heavy.
yeah, I have a couple of thousand hours of teaching. That's kind of what I started out doing. Well, I used to go to their houses when I was living in London, but then
Mhm.
like it's not an unusual story for people who are trying to build something for themselves. I ran out of money, it was rough, and I had to move back to Cornwall basically. And when I moved to Cornwall, it was a good opportunity for me just to get all these students online. Like it actually was a real blessing in that way. I thought I'd just lose all these students that I got, but they pretty much all moved online. But since I've started teaching adults, like honestly, I can't stress enough how much I love helping people who want to learn languages. But something I'd really love to do more in the future is help linguists actually build the lifestyles that they want for themselves. Because like now, alhamdulillah, like by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm in a position um of real like lifestyle design and joy, really. Like just to mention a couple of things, I guess. Like I can work anywhere. I can work literally anywhere. Like I have no in-person meetings with anybody, completely by design. Like I don't want to. Like I want to have that flexibility that if I want to spend a month at my dad's place in Cornwall, no problem. I'd really love to help linguists achieve things like that, because linguists generally are just to be the kind of person, as you say, who is prepared to approach a language, prepared to be humble enough to make mistakes all the time and to improve themselves, to be someone who's dedicated and consistent enough to actually keep on showing up and building a skill, to people who actually reach a level of like real confidence in a language. Those people are really legit special people.
Of course, yeah.
It's really nice to kind of meet people who want to be like that and to help people who are like that.
Have you ever been really inspired by any of your students?
Loads of them. So to be honest, like even though I was almost bad mouthing them, but actually a lot of the children were really special. Actually, that's a really good question. I mean, definitely. Like to be honest, quite regularly. Like there's, yeah. So some of the most inspiring really have been like full-time mothers who are studying my program online. Like that. There's one particular who comes to mind. I won't mention her name because I don't have her permission. But a woman who lives in Singapore. Like she's a stay-at-home mom, got 5 kids, and like she completed the Arabic in 60 Steps program, like smashed the exam, and like
Wow.
it's a format that just really served her. Like it's online. She can work anytime. Like sometimes she'd message me with
Amazing.
questions that like are like for her time, like 1 a.m. her time, right, in Singapore, because she's up doing a feed or something for one of the babies, and she's doing some Arabic at the same time.
Wow.
Like
Mashallah.
she's just piecing it in like that. That's what the Arabic and 60 Steps program is about. Like if nothing else, it being online, it being pre-recorded, it being available online and flexible and stuff. If nothing else, people like that is what it's about. And so students like that.
Amazing.
But like the kids, like yeah, like even though like I've kind of obviously I've left being a primary school teacher and stuff, like the kids that I taught at that school, like I don't know how to explain it, man. Like I like at that time in my life, I'd just got married. I had my own class of 7 8-year-olds. I taught year 4. Yeah, so like 8 and 9-year-olds, but mostly 8-year-olds at that time. And like I'd just got married. My wife told me we're gonna have a baby, And in the preparation for that, having that class of kids, like, because in primary school it's so intense, your relationship with them, like you see those kids every day, like you know who they're having fights with at playtime, you know what their parents are like you've met their parents and stuff, you're aware of all kind of safeguarding issues that kids have at home and everything
Sure.
like that. And it's so intense. Like when I left that job, it was so sad. Like I think about those kids even now all the time. I remember when I left that job, I was still living in the area in East London where the school is. And that was when I was like driving to kids' houses to teach the kids Arabic and
Hmm.
stuff. And there's a lot of kids who lived around that area. And sometimes I'd park up outside the school and I would be so upset that my classroom was on the other side of the school. So I couldn't see the kids work in the window. Like at primary school, like
Wow.
when kids make work, they put it up in the window and stuff, don't they?
Yeah, yeah,
Or at
yeah.
least at the school that I worked at, we had these big windows, and
Hmm.
there wasn't enough wall space. They'd often stick their work up on the wall, and I just wanted to see what the kids were doing at that stage. Like that's kind of deep, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
the
yeah. Well,
kids, they have a big impact on you.
it's funny that, because I think us as teachers, you stay in their life quite intimately with your
Mm,
student for so long,
yeah.
and you coach them to get where they need to be or where they want, and then it's that release, it's they go into the world and they continue doing their own thing,
Mm,
and it's that feeling of letting your kid go out, and you feel that sort of
mm,
responsibility to them. So
yeah.
it's surreal. But
Sure.
it's funny you talking about that. I also have some students that have really inspired me. Particularly, one big realization I've had is about growing older, because a lot of my students are actually, they're a bit older, and
Okay.
I have this one student from Italy,
Okay.
and he's 70 years old. Mashallah, he's 70 years old, and see, he's been retired for 2 years, but he wakes up early every morning. He has a shower. He shaves his face. He looks in the mirror and he says, "You can do it." And then he goes on a 9 kilometer brisk walk, he says. He plays tennis 4 times a week. He eats healthy. He talks about the good relationship he has with his wife. And then he comes to learn English. And he's just kind of refused to like grow old or to become
Mm,
stale. And see, when he talks, he's smiling and he's moving his hands and he's so expressive. Like there's so much energy when he talks. It's like there's something really uh, like addictive to being in. Like I feel like I'm energized by being in this older guy's company, because he has
yeah.
so much life and energy, and you can see that youthfulness which is just stayed inside him, and he's exercised that youthfulness with exercise and healthy lifestyle. Another student I had, she's a doctor from Croatia, and she had a comfortable life teaching in universities and being a GP. But she was a grandmother, but she decided to move to the UK and just completely start again. And she's learning English, and she has to set exams in order for her to be able to work in her field. She had everything, she was comfortable, but she decided to make that restart. And I think that's really inspiring, to have
Mm,
the courage and the confidence to do something like that. And you can see just in her energy and the way she carries herself, there's like youthfulness, and it's really refreshing to be in her company. And it's such a contrast, because I see people who are my age who just play, you know, the last 5 years of their life have been the same, playing video games, same habits, same
mm,
friends, living in the same street. Their bedroom looks the exact same. They wear the same clothes, and they live in this bubble. But you can grow through life, and as long as you're adding change and your life is dynamic and you've got healthy habits, this ability to grow and have energy. Like I feel energized by being in these students' company, whereas some people my own age who have just stopped growing, I feel like really they're the ones who've grown old.
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
It'll be interesting to like I do want to talk to you about kind of what you've got sort of lined up next, like where you'd like kind of like to take this next. But a nice and like something that would be nice would be something a little bit like I think like there's a photographer from New York who put together a book just called Humans of New York or something like that. And it would be cool to kind of be cool for you to put together a book of like 50 stories of these students who are learning English for something, like but specifically as an English teacher, like how English enhanced their life in some way. Like it, like with a woman from Croatia, it would make sense if it opened opportunities for her here, but for the gentleman in Italy, like for him, it might not be about the things you assume people want to learn English for, like getting a better job or something. It's just for the mind. Like for a lot of people, it might just be beneficial to
Sure.
someone for something like that. Like, because there's really cool stories of people, and people like reading that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea.
So yeah, so that leads me on to what is there next? Because to be honest, like when I started out teaching Arabic, like I always kind of had business in mind. Like I'm not like a cutthroat entrepreneur. Like to be honest, in lots of ways, I've left a lot of money on the table but to do things that I think just help people more. Like 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 for example, just pricing the Arabic in 60 Steps program as low as it is.
Sure.
And then like I often do payment plans for people who find that difficult even, and like just putting out the amount of content that I do for free and stuff. Like it's important not to lose sight of the things that are really important and impact people.
Of
But
course, yeah.
for me, I have always kind of had had it in my mind to really do business, like to build something. And I think that's why I didn't stay in kind of tutoring people for so long, because I didn't see how it was scalable. So I kind of wanted to ask you about what, like, do you have other things planned? Like, is that a priority for you to kind of do something that you can sell without your time, be it a book, an audiobook, a course, or whatever?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. That's something I'd love to do. I really enjoy my class time. I really do enjoy my class time. I like the one-on-one time with my students, and I think I'm really lucky with the students I've got. But and I'm kind of taking a similar route to you. Like, I'm giving a lot of free content on Instagram and on YouTube every single day. But eventually I'd like to have something which, like, a really cut and clean course where, but it would be focused on something regarding, maybe one or two specific parts of the language.
Okay.
But before I got there, I'd like to just kind of keep developing my online portfolio. Alhamdulillah, it's grown really fast. I think the Instagram's at like 5,000 followers,
Yeah,
and I've been
mashallah.
on that for like 3 months or something. But yeah, eventually I'd like to probably sell some kind of course and set up my own website. It's funny because I've had to realize how much can I actually take on, how much can I actually do just now. I don't know if you can see behind me there, but like,
Yep.
I have my daily action plan.
Yeah, nice.
And like every day, it's from my classes are from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m.
Wow.
So students can book with me anytime between that. And the day before, I'll kind of schedule in what I need to do. And I have another whiteboard where I have future goals, and I've written down some of the courses that I want to produce.
Cool.
But I've just not had the time to produce it. But I feel like I keep getting more knowledge, and I keep, like, it's a learning experience for me also. So I suspect probably for the next, I've said to myself, for 1 year I don't want to take a day off, because I'm really grateful for this opportunity. So for 1 year I'm just going to work the entire year, and then I think after that I'll take some time off to produce courses or really reflect on what's the next move.
It's cool to, at this stage, not to rush it too much. Like I always find, like, a lot of the time people get advised to monetize in certain ways way too early. Like because it's all on your own. It's all on your own timeline. Like I got some advice from people a few years ago to kind of put together like a high end, like something that you can charge like $5,000, $10,000 for or something. And like, while I get the business, right, like I get the metrics of it, I get why that makes sense. So you can put money into advertising and you can do sales calls to close people on a higher ticket stuff. But like, I just didn't feel it. Do you know what I mean? Like the very first thing that I sold, other than my time, was a subscription to like a very, very early stage Arabic in 60 Steps program, but it wasn't called that then. It was very early stage for like $4.99 a month, right? Because that's all I was comfortable saying. Like, I couldn't get the words out of my mouth. This costs £50, or this costs £100, or this costs £10,000, or whatever, right? Like, if you can't, then just don't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's not real, if it doesn't come from a place where like you're comfortable saying the numbers, then don't. And like, it's important to build that base. Like in a position like yours where you're building like a really decent following on Instagram and on YouTube and stuff. And I'm also a big fan of how you're focused on two as well. Like, I've always spread myself way too thin with regards to these platforms, right? Whereas like in the future, if I start something new, like I'll almost definitely focus on a couple of avenues that I know I'm good at, like longer form YouTube podcasts. Like those are the things that I tend to do well in. Like, for some reason I don't Instagram especially well. yeah, I don't know, like some people just warm to different platforms more so than others, don't they, I guess. And
Yeah, of
I'm a
course.
terrible writer as well. I've tried to write blogs and stuff, but
Really.
or maybe that's just the same as me looking at the camera and writing myself off 5 years ago
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I wasn't good on camera. Do you know, it might just be the same as that, but you know,
uh,
it's smart not to spread yourself too thin, because you are only one you. Do you know what I mean? Like
of
well,
course.
unless you have a team of virtual assistants or something I don't know about, whatever. But most people are just one person. You know,
Yeah.
you've got
There's
to.
only so many hours in the day.
Have you thought about obviously you need permission from your students and stuff, but it might be quite nice to like document the lessons that you're teaching and repurposing them for content. Do you know what I mean? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. I I think that's really good. Plus, I'd
Yeah.
really like to show my students progress. I tend to
Mm,
find like students see a really big difference, not over like 50 lessons or 100 lessons. Students see a really big difference within like 5 lessons.
wow.
See, as soon as they've had someone that they can actually like sort of laugh with and feel like is their friend and encouraging them to speak.
Mm.
And it's funny, I went into this thinking I would be able to work on my Arabic, but it's actually been the opposite. My Arabic's gotten worse since I started doing this, and I've realized it's unfair of me to speak to my students in Arabic, because I cannot give them the ability to speak in their native language, because see, when that's there, they become lazy, because the mind thinks
Right.
I could construct this sentence in English and it's going to take time and it'll be messy, or I could just say it in Arabic and it'll take 1 second and then that's it.
Mm.
So it's yeah, you tend to see people developing really quickly. It's I think it's a lot of it just comes down to confidence.
That's really interesting. You mentioned that earlier, actually. I wanted to say something about how, you know, to keep students' momentum going. Like you know, it's really important for students to actually see that they are learning, they are progressing quickly. Like if they come out of one lesson and they know that they've learned something that they can take away
Mm.
from it. And, you know, that's a real obstacle in Arabic, because to even construct a simple sentence in Fusha, you need a fair bit of grammar. Do you know
Of
what I
course.
mean? And like
Yeah.
you might have noticed in the Arabic in 60 Steps program, that first lesson on phrases is longer than the others, because like in that first lesson, firstly we can afford to make it the case, because students come into that lesson all enthusiastic because they've just started, they've invested some money in themselves, and
Mm.
like they're willing to digest it. And like, because in that first lesson we cover everything that you need to piece together like phrases like, you know, the big house, the small girl, the whatever else, like, and
Mm.
those are some real serious nuts and bolts of the language. Like students by the end of that one lesson understand things like, so on some level understand like what number is, what case is, what definiteness is, what gender is in the language. And you know, that's a real hurdle in Arabic, because it just means that to give students after the first lesson something they can really take away, then it needs to be quite a it's quite a large lesson, you know.
Yeah, of
That
course.
is something that I noticed just in writing the program. But as I say, like we can afford it. Like students can afford the energy for it because it's the first lesson, and then you know the stuff that we do after that. Like I deliberately wrote the program so it was kind of as accumulative as possible. Like the second lesson
Mm.
would quite clearly build on from the one that came before it. So,
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, students also getting a "you're doing great, well done."
mm,
I can tell that sentence was really difficult for you to build, and you built it excellently. You should be proud of yourself. You see, when they hear that, they think, "Wow!" And you can actually see that makes a difference in them. So giving them that positive feedback on their
mm,
hard efforts, it's like one thing I found. Like one thing I really love is weight training and exercise. And one thing that I tend to find with guys who do that is it's when they first see result, when they first realize, oh, I'm a little bit less fat, I'm a little bit more muscular, or I can bench press a little bit more weight. It's that I actually got a piece of result.
mm,
And how do you get that in language? It's by someone saying, oh, well, your English is fantastic. That word you use, I know that's a new word that you just learned and you said it excellently. Good job. So
mm.
someone actually recognizing your efforts and encouraging you, I think, letting people, bringing a light and an attention to the areas where they're developing and they're becoming better, I think that's really important for people's confidence.
That's something recently I finished listening to an audiobook by have you heard of David Goggins?
Yeah, I know.
So his audiobook Can't Hurt Me. Have you read that book or listened to the audiobook?
I listened to the audiobook. I didn't commit to it. I didn't get through it.
Okay, sure.
I heard it's really popular, but it did
Mm.
really well. I think there's a lot
Well,
of
Yeah, well,
etc.
if people are prepared to grit their teeth for a bit of cursing and stuff, then go for it. But like in that, obviously that's a man who has achieved like incredible things. Like at one point had the world record for pull-ups. Do you know how many it is, by the way? The world record for pull-ups.
300 or something.
So it's a world record for pull-ups in 24 hours, right? Have you tried to do a pull-up recently?
Yeah.
I can do like 3, and
Okay.
I'm relatively strong. I think I can do like
Yeah,
3.
yeah.
Pull-ups are hard, yeah.
Yeah,
David
sure.
Goggins in less than 24 hours did 4,030.
Whoa.
That's that's
4,030. That's
ridiculous,
nuts.
isn't it? It's ridiculous. But when I was listening, to the audio book, like he's been through, like he's one of the only people to complete training for like the Marines, like the Army and the Air Force.
Mhm.
He's like an ultra runner, does 200-mile races and stuff like that. It's insane,
Wow.
some of the stuff that he does. But I thought, like, there's no trophies with, like, for language learners like that. Do you know what I mean? Like as someone myself, sometimes, like if I'm trying to achieve a certain thing in learning a certain language or whatever, it's so quiet there. Like there's no prizes for becoming fluent in French. Like there's no prizes when you learn more languages than someone else. But like with other disciplines like sport and the military, you get these medals. You know, you get praised as being the person who crossed the finish line first. But like in
Yeah.
language learning, it makes a big difference for the students for you to offer those little medals. You know, like when I created the Arabic in 60 Steps program, I had adults write to me and say, "Can we have a certificate when we finish the exam?" Like, I just thought to myself, like I just never thought that would be necessary, but it really is, man.
Oh,
Like
really? It really is.
adults who complete the Arabic in 60 Steps program, I write them a handwritten letter of congratulations and I send them a certificate in the post. And
Amazing.
like that stuff that makes a
It's
big
good.
difference. You know,
It's
like so,
really big difference.
you know, like I think when I came out of
Mm.
primary teaching, like I just assume that all like adults don't need stuff like that, but
Yeah.
you know, it's so important because as I was saying, like comparing it to the military or sport or any kind of athletics of any kind, like there's an amount of praise for it, or even people can see it in you physically. Like if you become physically stronger and bigger, people can see it in you, and there's an amount of praise and helping for your ego along the way. But like with languages, it's all just brute strength to get through it. It's another
Oh,
reason
yeah.
why I admire linguists so much, like especially linguists who have learnt another language as opposed to people who are necessarily like raised being bilingual or multilingual or whatever. That I respect that as well. Obviously, I'm not saying that I don't respect that skill, but like
Yeah,
people who have actually pushed themselves through that to learn another language, I think that mind and that heart of a person like that is pretty legit.
yeah. Oh,
So
it totally is.
so I've taken quite a lot of your time, my brother. So what I want to do, there's a few things I want to ask you at the end. There's a few questions that I've stolen
Please,
from.
go ahead.
There's a few questions that I've stolen from Tools of Titans by Team Ferriss that I just
Mhm.
think are really good questions. They're not related to Arabic, but I'd just be interested to get your take on them. So
Please.
number one, what is your best purchase under £100? Is there something specific that you've purchased for less than £100 that you use all the time, or you just think's really cool? Okay, nice.
This. I use this maybe 5, 6. Oh, sorry, that's an exaggeration. Maybe 5, 600 times in a day through all my
Wow.
classes. I've got this in my hand. I've actually got a collection of these.
Wow,
So
cool.
yeah, I think
Cool.
it's excellent to have something just so you're doing some kind of exercise. Like, see the fidget spinners, I was inclined to those, but the fidget spinner is useless because you're not really developing anything. But
No.
these small hand workouts, I think they're just excellent. I
Cool.
think it's a great piece of equipment.
Cool. How much are they?
You can get them cheaper. There's actually a better one. There's Where is it? I have an adjustable one. The adjustable one is £5, and the adjustable one you can change the strength of it. The
Yeah.
adjustable one starts at 5 kilograms of force, and it goes up to
Okay.
60 kilograms of force.
Okay.
This one's 80, and I've not closed it yet. I'm trying really hard to be able to close it. I'm not
Cool.
quite there yet, but I'm getting
Cool.
closer to closing it.
Wow. Cool. I've actually one of mine is I've got a like an exercise band. I just
Yeah,
found that when I'm training at home, it's really hard to get good back exercises at home unless you have a pull-up bar. Like I don't have anywhere in my
sure.
house I can really fix one. But like yeah, I've got like it's a pretty thick one, and sometimes I just sit on the floor with my legs stretched out, and it helps me stretch my legs as well. But I just hook it over my feet and do rows with it.
Oh, great,
I just
great.
find it really helps my posture and stuff
Oh,
generally as
big time.
well. Like
Absolutely.
that, like I think that's about it's like 19.99. That like there's so many things like that, especially someone like me who sits at a desk so much. Like it really makes sense for me to invest in something like that to improve my posture for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. That's a good one, actually. I've never heard people. I never heard about those. Well, I've seen them, but I mean, I've not heard anyone give me that as an answer before. Next one would be if you could be mentored by anyone who's alive. it needs to be alive, because for us Muslims, like, it's obvious that would be mentored by the
Obviously,
Messenger of
yeah,
Allah
yeah,
sallallahu alaihi
sure,
wasallam,
sure.
or his companions or whatever.
It's too
But
easy.
like,
It would have been too
yeah,
easy if
yeah,
you asked me
exactly. It's
that.
the same answer for everybody, right? But if we put the condition on it, has to be someone who's alive. Who would you be mentored by?
Uh, it's such a good question. Such a
Let's
good
circle back
question.
to it then. I want to ask you about something, actually. I saw something on your
Yeah,
Instagram story with Elliot Hulls recently.
yeah.
So what is that?
Yeah, well, that's actually someone I was going to mention.
Yeah.
He mentors me,
Wow.
and yeah, I'm really grateful for my relationship with him. He's
How?
helped me a lot.
How do you know him?
Well, I've signed up to some of his courses, kind of the way I know you. I signed up to his courses.
Wow. That's amazing,
Yeah,
man. Because he's like one
and
of the OGs. Like, seriously, like, but before, like, there's loads of like online people who help you with building online businesses and general like performance and stuff. But
sure.
like Elliot Hulls is like, he's an OG. Like, I remember his videos
Yeah,
being out when I was at uni. Like, we're talking like
yeah.
7-8 years ago or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
he's
he's a really good guy. A really good documentary came out on him because there's a lot of controversy that surrounds Elliot Hulls, and one thing I really appreciate for him is he's just such a fearless expression of what he believes to be true, and
Mhm.
his character, if you've kind of observed him over the years, he's always been this fearless expression of what he sees to be true or to be right, and it's really inspiring.
Mm.
One thing I got from him is this not to do list. I don't know if you see that behind me,
Oh,
the not
cool,
to do
cool,
list.
cool,
Yeah, so
cool.
I learned a lot of really interesting things from him.
That's really
He's a really
smart.
cool guy.
That's really smart. I say no to loads of stuff. Like now, like honestly, like when I was a teacher, or something that
Mhm.
was completely revolutionary to me. Like the idea that you would say no to tasks. Like, we're so
Mhm.
often taught that we should be busy, aren't we? Like, we're so often taught that like you should be a productive person and get everything done.
Mhm.
But now, like, I've got a completely different attitude. Like, my default to stuff is no, my time's not going on that, unless like, and there needs to be a really good reason for something for me to put my time towards something, you know.
Speaking of Tim Ferriss and the 4-hour work week, skip to the end. There's a bit where Tim Ferriss has his own not to do list
Okay, cool.
for increasing for increasing productivity for
Mm,
entrepreneurs.
cool.
And I actually made a video on it on my YouTube channel,
Oh,
and it's a
cool.
list of 9 things. But it's good if you hear it from his own words, and
Mm,
it's really a fantastic list.
cool. If it's hard to get it down to one person who would mentor you, if you had like a boardroom of like 4 or 5 people who you met every month or something,
Oh man.
do you have any names that you'd put in there?
Well, see, the thing is, I've really been taking Elliot Hulls quite seriously as a mentor,
Yep.
and it's hard to take on too many, and I'd probably not advise to take on too many because you kind of need to, like, some of my students will say that they're thinking of getting 2 teachers or 3 English teachers, and they'll ask me what my opinion is, and of course they'll think that I have a bias by saying no, you shouldn't do that, you should just stick with me, because they'll think I just want the money. But as a matter of fact, the 3 English teachers, they could give you a really sound way of learning. They can all have really relevant points which have been helpful to either themselves or their students. But if you're being pulled in 3 different directions, like what you should focus on, how you should spend your time, like there's 2 uh, I was talking to 2 of my friends who are both entrepreneurs, and we were talking about like priorities. And one of them said they recommend, having a relationship in a friends group, and they put that as a priority, as a foundation, and that's how they have seen success. But then the other entrepreneur was the complete opposite of that, and he's also had success. And he says
Yeah.
you shouldn't give your time to that. So I don't think there's really a right or wrong answer in a lot of these cases, but you need to commit to something. You need to believe in it. And I think if you've got too many different mentors, that can actually be problematic.
That makes tons of
Man,
sense. That makes tons
it's
of
a really
sense.
like wishy-washy. I mean, I suppose it makes sense, but it's a wishy-washy answer because I think you were looking for names.
Well, no, but that actually answers the question
Yeah.
though.
Okay.
Like that actually answers the question. Like, but perhaps to reword it, just people who you admire. They don't have to be like, some of the ones that I would give would really surprise people. Like,
Yeah. Go ahead.
one that I would give would be Chef Gordon Ramsay.
Oh, really?
I
Yeah,
think
that's surprising.
that'd surprise people that I would choose Chef Gordon Ramsay. But let me tell you why. Okay,
Okay.
he's not an individual who I want to be like. Right? He's not like yeah, he's not an individual I'd necessarily even like to meet, right? But he's an
Mhm.
individual that I admire for this reason, right? He is a person who is at the top, like in the world of his field, in 3 different things, right? Like most people, if you're like a top Michelin starred chef, that's your thing, right?
Mhm.
But he, like the man legit knows like 3,000 recipes. Like he can go in the line and he can actually cook, right? So he's actually like a world-class chef still. But he could leave the kitchen if he wanted, because he's a restaurateur. Like his restaurant empire makes like 60 million a year or something.
Wow.
Like he's actually like a world-class chef, a world-class restaurateur. And if he wanted to present on any show ever on TV, he could. Like he's also like a TV personality and a presenter and stuff as well. Like those 3 skills that most people only do one of them. Like most people in the world who are at his level, they only do one. But he's a person who is just such an excellent performer in those ways. And I also appreciate how well he just dismisses hate from people as well, because that's always been something that I've struggled with as well. And he's sort of blunt enough to dismiss them very quickly. And
Amazing.
I
That's really
respect that.
interesting that you see him. That's really interesting that you see him. I
Not
would have
just because he's
never.
not because he's Scottish though. That wasn't one of them in particular. But
Gordon Ramsay.
yep,
Gordon Ramsay Scottish.
I actually think he's actually from Glasgow originally. Lost his accent
Really?
obviously completely, but yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't realize he was from Scotland.
but he is Scottish. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a name. I'd say Eddie Hall.
Okay. Wow. Cool.
Yeah. Do you follow World's Strongest Man?
No, but I've seen the Netflix documentary on him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think like see any supreme athlete that like see people who are willing to put themselves through laborious like training and hardships for a result. I really find that inspiring. And with him trying to go in the world's strongest man or lift the 500-kilogram deadlift, he was doing things that people told him were impossible for his size and his stature. But he had this attitude of he just wanted to prove everyone wrong, and just complete belief in himself. He just had this ridiculous belief in himself. And the extent he went to lift the 500-kilogram deadlift, he's done interviews on it where he talks about it wasn't just training his body. Before he lifted it, his max deadlift was 460.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about like lifting weights, the heavier you get, the like even to add another 5-kilogram plate on is a lot harder.
Yeah.
But he was at like his threshold for the max he could lift. Then he slaps a 20 on each side of the bar, and he still pulls it.
What a
And
freak.
for him to be able to do that, he actually had to hypnotize himself, and he did a year of hypnotherapy so to train his mind. And the only time he ever did it was when he was actually on the stage, and I found that just incredible. It was really an example of mind over matter.
That is incredible. You know, like about his journey, like the something that I really admired about it is like, and I admire this about, you know, all kinds of people, not even people who are as well known as him, people who just go through such like hard financial difficulty on their way to on the way to what they want. Like, because like I've been there, man. Like when you're trying to build something or trying to get somewhere in life, and you have to go home to your wife and say like, I've not been here all day, and I've got nothing for it. like that. You've got to really want something for that. Like that's grim. Like you know,
Sure.
it's I don't know, it's really touching to see the partners who support them through things like that. Like it's not on Netflix anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't another one who I don't especially like the individual, but like watching Conor McGregor with his girlfriend, like how she supported him when he was saying things like, I'm gonna knock out Aldo and stuff. Like it would be so easy for the people around him to be like, bloody hell,
You're
McGregor.
crazy.
I know he's like been drinking the whiskey again.
Yeah.
Talking about Conor McGregor again. You know, bloody hell, it's him again talking about knocking out Aldo in 13 seconds or whatever. And the people actually stand by them in that is pretty special.
Yeah, it's another one is like Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
You know, he had that attitude. I think he had some. I've not heard it straight from the source, but I think he had problems with his dad, and he was like kind of put down and told that he will not be an achiever. And then the way he used that to fuel his obsession with being the best in his field. And you can see there's a certain psychology within these people who are successful who turn. In fact, Ryan Holiday talks about it in his book, The Obstacle is the Way, turning adversity into advantage, being able to use that source, that this like negative emotion or this hardship, and use it to like fuel your growth. Again, really inspiring. There's this advert I saw just recently, and it was an advert for Jaguar. and I don't follow football, but it was a football manager in the advert, and he's in the advert. His script is something like, "They say I'm fearless, but I'm not. You can see fear in a man's face by a twitched brow, a movement of the lips, but be warned, a man fueled by fear is a man to be feared." I thought that was a really epic line.
Yeah.
But this idea that what you're afraid of doing, what you feel anxious about doing, or what other people would feel anxious or discouraged by, to have that feeling and say, I'm going to do it. I have this this belief in myself that this is for me, and to persist. I find that attitude really inspiring.
Have you been following the rugby, by the way? They're called the
No,
Autumn Nations now. Are you into rugby?
I don't follow any sport. The only sport I follow is strongman.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I was just going to I don't know what the term is when you claim to know a famous person. There's a term for that or something, isn't there? Where you name drop or whatever. But I played rugby for Cornwall.
Oh, amazing.
I played rugby for Cornwall under 15s and under 16s, and in the A team for Cornwall that I played for, 2 players that I played with now play for England, and they were playing for England.
Wow.
And in the last game against France where they won the cup, a guy who played number 8 in my team with Cornwall, he scored like the winning try for that, and little claim to fame for me. I mean, unfortunately, it worked out that the other guy is a guy who plays one of the backs now, is a guy called Jack Knoll. And Jack Knoll and I competed for the same positions for Cornwall, both at inside centre, and I got that A team and he was in the B team, right? So like I can make the claim in a way that 10 years ago I was better than Jack Knoll.
Mashallah, so, yeah.
Well, so I mean, obviously he went on to sort of get massive and play for England, and I ended up learning Somali. But,
that's good, man. Where life takes us.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
life takes us.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, man. Yeah, exactly. So what we'll do actually, just to round off, is let's remind everybody where people can find you, inshallah. So what platforms are you on, and if people wish to meet you to improve their English as well, inshallah, because we have an audience in a lot of other countries. Our biggest audience are obviously UK and USA, but we also have a lot of people in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, a lot of other places who may be interested in English with you as well. So please just drop your handles for us, inshallah.
Yeah, sure. YouTube, English with Ray, and Instagram, Learn English with Ray.
Fantastic. Jazakallah khair for your time.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thank you for having me here. Take care of yourself, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care. Wa alaikum salam.